Hello, gorgeous woman, and welcome to this exclusive and very special series of the Rebel Matriarch podcast, Mystics Unhinged. In this space, our beautiful mystics are coming forth and they are speaking unfiltered, unedited, uncensored truths that every woman needs to hear, especially you. So buckle up, get ready, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous human beings, and welcome to the Rebel Matriarch podcast. My name is Samantha Sanford, and I'm your host. And today we have the next episode of the Mystics Unhinged series. And I am bringing to you today a beautiful woman who I feel like there is going to be some spiciness to our conversation. And I'm already enjoying the energy that she's bringing. And so, Jags, thank you so much for being on this series and saying yes to being here. I know it's really late for you over there, so I'm just so grateful that you said.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to come on to your podcast. And I just feel like it's so important at the moment because there's so much happening in the world, so much confusion. And I think at this moment in time, so many people are going through so many rebirths. They're rising up, confusion, they're in the void, so everyone's at different stages. And I think the biggest thing is people are like in a stage of confusion, as in what's real, what isn't. And it's like people have kind of forgotten how to use their discernment, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
there's a lot. I think especially in the last 5 or 6 years with COVID and everything, it's like who's real, who isn't, and who's been taken for a mug, basically.
Yeah, and who do I trust? And it's really
Exactly.
interesting observing how most people have outsourced their power and outsourced their trust. It's not even a question of trusting themselves anymore. It's a question of which authority, not community, but authority figure or authority conglomerate am I going to be trusting? It's like, actually.
But it's not only that, it's just I think there's just also a lot of fake teachers and fake gurus out there now as well.
Oof, yes.
And there's just so much there. And it's just like, are you for real? And people who've, you could say, have stepped into the spiritual arena, and within a year or two, they are calling themselves experts. People who have had the gift since birth or have been born into that lineage, they're like, we're not calling ourselves experts. How can you be an expert? There's just so much. So, just because you're sitting there honing your skill for 10,000 hours or whatever, it doesn't necessarily make you an expert because we're forever learning. That's the soul's purpose here, to learn so we can then return to source. I mean, if we were experts, we wouldn't be literally on this earth at this moment in time. But we're still here to learn and evolve because we have still got our soul lessons to learn. And people just don't understand that. And it's very dangerous for vulnerable people because they're putting their well-being into the hands of these people.
Yeah.
And the question is, how much of their work have they embodied themselves within a short space of time? I mean, you and I, Samantha, we've probably been in this arena for a while because our worlds have collided in and out over the last, I would say, 7 or 8 years, maybe 9 years, 10 years.
Yep.
And it's like we never claim to know everything. We're discovering something new continuously.
Absolutely.
So I think what I'm finding now is, since COVID, and I don't know if you've been finding this, a lot of people are very lonely. They don't know who to trust, who not to trust. And instead of moving forward, we're going backwards. And this is not healthy in any means at all, especially for women, because as women, we need that sense of community. And it's like, who can you trust and who can you not trust? And it's very, very difficult because there's this fine line, you know. Yes, we need that support, but it's like, how can you find that genuine support around you? And there are a lot of people who talk about the whole sisterhood and blah blah blah, but there is no sisterhood, if that makes sense. There is a whole bunch of bitching going on behind the scenes. So what is real, what isn't? And it's almost like, is anyone actually being authentic and real? Are they being real with themselves? That is one of the biggest questions that I find in recent times. And I think one of the reasons why I have this introspective view is because, you know, over the last 5 or 6 years, a lot has happened in my personal life, but also professionally as well. But I just sit there looking at people and I was like, okay. I just, you know, I'm not kind of jumping onto any latest trend or the latest fad, staying in my lane. But when you see things out there where you can tell that it's harming someone, it's going to trigger you. And this is where I've had to pull back from social media, especially over the last 6 or 7 months, because it was triggering the hell out of me. And it's just like, okay, not to be judgy, but it's like you can spot inauthenticity a mile off.
Can you share some examples without, you don't have to name names, but what are some of the behaviors that you're seeing where people are being fried?
So, for example, on social media, everything's become so performative, and it's one that. Secondly, it's like, oh, you're reading, like, for example, there was someone that I came across pre-COVID, she was pushing Forex. And then all of a sudden she had this spiritual awakening. And then she started making videos on like the chakras and everything. And it's like, but where are your certifications? Have you got any certifications? You're reading books, you're regurgitating everything from books onto social media. And then this person's following has grown immensely. But then the scary thing is that this person is not qualified in certain modalities like astrology or human design, and was giving consultations on that.
Yeah.
You know, from what I could see. And that's scary. But also this person had on their profile, I healed my mental health for free. I can help you too. And that is very, very dangerous because you don't know what the other person has gone through. If that person has had a traumatic past, for example, has been in a violent relationship, or has been in a narcissistic relationship, or has been sexually abused as a child, you can't be going around saying those things.
That's right. Yeah, it's dangerous, isn't it?
It's very, very dangerous. You know, so it kind of concerns me, but then it's almost like, okay, you got to take a step back, let that person play out what they're doing, and carry on in my own lane. There are a few others as well where it's like, you know, you can tell. They always say that people without a soul, there is no light in their eyes. I've come across a few of those as well. And you can sense that energy.
I didn't know that. Pardon me. I didn't know that. Did I know that? No, I don't feel like I ever really thought about it, that people could come without a soul.
I didn't realize either until I came across somebody on TikTok who said that. And he said that you can actually figure out if you've got a soul or not.
Oh. It's for
He
me, it's
said,
almost intuitive. Like I feel like I know that I have a soul, but how do
but
you
he gave an
know?
exercise basically. He said, like, if you can feel heat between your hands and it's pushing you apart, you've got a soul.
Okay.
And and you can feel that heat, can't you? You can feel that energy. And
Yes.
if that person hasn't, then no. But you can normally tell, look at somebody's eyes and tell what's going on, right? And I've had my friends say, how do you know what's going on, if someone's true or not? And I said, like, just because I see what's on social media doesn't mean that I can't see what's going on behind, because you've got to realize I've been doing psychic work for over 30 years, 35 years. I've been doing it since my teens, right? Maybe even as a child. So I can tell. And I was having a conversation with a friend a couple of days ago, and she was like, but I like to see the best in everyone. I go, yeah, but we all do. But there comes a point where you've got to see them where they're at, and you can't take what they say at face value. You've got to use your discernment. Using your discernment right now is so, so important. So
Yeah.
important. Because I have spoken to so many people in recent times where it's like, I went to this person, they've said this, and they've really upset me. Or, and the thing is, you feel for people, especially when someone's going through a breakup or a really acrimonious divorce, because they want answers. It's all great. You want to come to an intuitive or a healer. That's brilliant. But you can't make it an addiction, right? We are not there as therapists. We are there to guide you and hold space for you. But ultimately, our job is to empower you. I've had clients who've come to me, and before they read with me, I always ask them, when was the last time you had a reading or you had a healing session? And if they say yesterday, I'm like, sorry, I can't read for you. We have to reschedule, because energy will get distorted and I cannot give them the best reading that they need. And I always say to them, come back to me in 3 to 6 months, or when you feel like you need another session. Otherwise, it's a no from me.
Oh, I've never heard anyone say that before. And it makes complete sense. And you see so many people who are addicted because rather than actually internalizing and learning to trust themselves and like connecting with their intuition, they're outsourcing their power again, and just like and then if someone's not giving the right answer, it's like onto the next person, onto the next modality, psychic reading. It's just like bouncing all
I
over.
mean, it becomes like, when you're at the lowest of low, you want that. It's almost like that emotional crutch that it's kind of giving you that hope. I mean, when I was younger, in my teens, unfortunately, I lost my grandparents back to back in a short space of time. I got addicted to readings. I was only 18, 19. I had no one to guide me. So this is lived experience that I'm speaking from, and if I know what I know now, I wouldn't have done that. My life would have been completely different, and it's almost like, at that point, it's just like, whoa, what's happened? I was very, very vulnerable at that time, because of, like, two of my closest, it's like my nan died, and then 6 weeks later, my grandfather died. I was 19 going on 20, and you're like, whoa.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, because you don't have, everyone's engrossed in their own grief. But for a child to lose a grandparent is a lot, because when you've not had, it's not that I've not lost my other two grandparents. I lost my other two grandparents like much earlier on. But those two, they were my last two surviving. So it's almost like, if it was just one at a time, but two in 6 weeks, it's a lot.
It is.
It is a lot. Um, you know, God, like, may they rest in peace and everything. But it's almost like, where I am today is all those lessons learned that I've gone through. And everyone will sit there and say, oh, but what if this didn't happen? What if that didn't happen? And I always say there's always a lesson to learn, because we're going through all these experiences to become the best version of ourselves, to be where we need to be to help others. And that's exactly what's happened with me. And I quite clearly state to my clients, it's like, if you want a reading, come back to me in 3 to 6 months, or when you feel like you need it. Anything before that, no. If it's on the same topic, I'm not going to do you another reading. If it's a different topic, then come back. And then if that comes up, yes. Otherwise, it's a no. And they were like, why didn't we meet you before? And I'm like, because we were not meant to meet before, or you wouldn't have been ready to hear what I had to say. Unfortunately, a lot of people go to psychics, it can go to the most random psychics. And I'm sure you've found this as well. I always say to people, go where you are drawn to, right? Just because someone is recommending someone, that person may not vibe for you. That person may not be right for you. So don't waste your money.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of money has been wasted because people are not trusting that pool.
They're not trusting that pool. I mean, like, sometimes I sit there going, some of the things that I hear, I was like, really? I just like, I try not to laugh. I really, really try not to laugh, but it, like, internally, not that I'm going to laugh at the client, but it's almost like, what the hell? But with me, I always say, like, when you come to me, be open as you need to be. You want to swear it out. If you want me to call your ex names, I will gladly call them. So you will probably hear me effing and blinding in a reading. That's just how I am. I will not give you what you want to hear. I will give you what you need to hear. And that's the whole point of the reading. I always say to people, you will get what you're given, not what you want. But you can't push that information out, because spirit will resist giving that information.
Yes. I love this.
They will resist giving that information, and they just shut it down. But the different kind of clients I've had the most funniest, I've had the most, like, some of the questions they ask, I'm sure you can imagine. But I mean, I've worked on the psychic hotlines as well. So you get to see, like, a really broad sense of, like, clientele.
I feel like there are
From
some really, really good stories working on the psychic hotline that you really start to get to know humanity on a whole new level.
Okay. So one of the psychic hotlines that I worked for, like, this is how dumb some people are and how gross they are. So one guy sends a chat text message. Now, this was a few years ago. Am I going to end up having sex with my ex-girlfriend's mother?
Okay. Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I was like, I just didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I was sitting there cringing at this question.
Yeah.
And I was like, the opportunity is there if you want it, but I don't think she's interested. I mean, what are you supposed to say to that? Oh, yeah, I can see you, go into a long description of, like, 50 Shades of Grey style or something, like, you're going to go and do all the Mr. Grey stuff. Other things is, it's almost like I've had clients who become obsessed with one person. They're so fixated on that person that they want to be with them. And it's like they've wanted to be with them for like 7 years, but now it's like this person's not even bothering with them and stuff. And it's just every couple of days, it's a phone call. How is this person feeling? And I was just like, no different from what they were feeling the other day. When's contact coming in? Am I going to see them? And I'm sitting there thinking, right, okay, let me try this another way. I don't really care about that person that you're fixated on. I'm concerned about your mental health, because this is getting unhealthy. Stop phoning up and asking about them every other day. But then this person will talk to me, talk to another 2 psychics, and then start comparing all the notes. And all 3 of us tend to say the same thing. But it's a case of, I don't know how much money this person has probably spent asking about the fixation. You know, and I was just like, look, I have been telling you for years, back off, keep an open mind, go out, meet new people. No, I don't trust people. People are like this, people are like that. Okay, yeah, but go and enjoy yourself. And then one of the last conversations I've had with this person was, I actually watched some comedy and I had so much fun, and I'm starting to feel more like myself. It's like, thank God. You know, in my heart, it's like, thank God. And I was like, what do you think he's feeling? I was like, he's being a douchebag. You know, right now he doesn't care about anybody else. He's just thinking about himself. And I also said to him, you know, this person is clinically depressed. So, you know, we will never know how his energy is going to be, because it's very hard to predict. Go out, meet new people, get yourself out there. And has he done it? No. Still obsessed about that person. And it's like, okay, he's like, I don't want to talk to him anymore. But then it's like this constant vicious cycle that he's got himself into. And I'm just trying to kind of help him break it. But he's choosing not to. But that's his free will. As a psychic, I can only guide you, but ultimately you've got to make that choice. And then other times, oh God, I've had some funny ones, but then it's almost like people just sometimes use the psychic lines to kind of talk to someone on a friendly basis. So again, it's like you've got to kind of have that fine line.
Yeah.
You have to have that compassion. And sometimes you have like women or men coming at their most vulnerable, you know, and at that point, it's just a case of they want that listening ear, they want that reassurance. You know, I think the worst ones that I've had are where people have been involved with the narcissistic relationship, where they're still like clinging on to hope for that last bit, but where their confidence has been completely broken. And it's not, and it's really sad to see that. And we're not talking about uneducated individuals. We're talking about very highly educated individuals as well. You know, lawyers and doctors and whatever. It can impact anyone. And the thing is, they've been manipulated at their most vulnerable stage in their life.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, you know, a big reason why I wanted to have these conversations with Mystics Unhinged is because for me, working with a psychic, or, you know, being in session with a psychic, or just surrounding myself with mystics who have beautiful gifts, my understanding is that they're a gateway to information, knowledge, wisdom, healing, like this really beautiful connection with source that is going to come through and just create beautiful opportunities, you know, if we're willing to take them. And so my concept of mystics is really, really big. And then hearing you speak about people coming onto the psychic hotlines, and then it reminds me that we're still human and that even though there are some beautiful souls doing big things, who have big visions, and who have so much respect for the gifts that you have, such as myself, and there are so many people that do, there are also so many people who really, they don't actually understand what it is that you do, and the gifts that you have, and the requirement and the devotion it takes to hold them and refine them. And it's just really interesting hearing these stories of people asking just some, I guess for us it's ridiculous, isn't it? But for them it might not seem ridiculous.
The thing is, I don't think it's ridiculous. I just think it's just where they're at. I mean, because we've all been there when we were younger, and we've all gone through our experiences to get where we are, right?
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is I always try and educate them in the most simplest way, like using analogies or saying, like, if you, whatever you focus on, you get more of that. So if you focus on worrying, then you get more worries, you know, and that kind of tends to kind of help them understand a bit more. And it's almost like, okay, when you're trying to push the door, it won't necessarily open, but sometimes you've got to step back. It's that push-pull effect. And they're like, yeah, I get it. I'm like, exactly. But the thing is, when you're in that moment and you're desperately wanting that person to contact you, you know, it does, you're building up that anxiety within yourself and you're getting that overwhelm as well, right? So it's very difficult because they are in a very vulnerable space. And we have to try and hold that space in the best way possible. I mean, one woman, all she does is like constantly talk. And then it's just like you try and have a conversation and try and explain things, but it's got to be her way. Why? Or some people then tend to kind of go from one relationship to another, to another, to another without a break. That's not healthy because you do not know who you are.
Definitely.
You're not giving yourself that opportunity to heal.
Or learn from the previous relationship.
Exactly.
What does it look like? Because, and I feel like this will be, I'm really excited to hear your perspective on this, because you do a lot of psychic readings, yeah, but there's also this aspect of free will. And so a lot of the times you'll share what's coming through in that moment, but that's just one timeline. In that, what you're presenting has an opportunity to shift very quickly and be something very different. What does that, like, how does that work for people who are tuning into?
So and as you said that, I've got goosebumps.
I love
I
this.
always say to people, right, okay, you're on this path. If you want, so for example, just say you were a client, you came to me and you said, right, my boyfriend is not giving me the attention XYZ. I want him to actually start coming more towards me. And I would be like, well, you need to stop making everything about him, because as women, and this is how we've been programmed, unfortunately, because this is what we've seen with our mothers and our grandparents and whatever, we make the man the universe, right? It's almost like, I always say, you've got to step back, focus more on the things that you've got to do and have stronger boundaries in place, right? When you do that, then it will give him the opportunity to value you. Whereas if you're constantly running after him, he's not going to value you. So I always use the analogy of the scales, right? And it's almost like when you meet, you're equal. But when you start putting the person on a pedestal, you're lowering your value.
Oh, that's a really good visual. Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, yeah. And then it's like that aha moment kicks in. So I was like, you've got to start focusing on the things that you've got to do. And then that person will come in. If you don't, then this is going to continue. And then it's almost like there's a lot of different layers to it as well, because if we tap into someone's energy about their childhood, their experiences, that's going to have an impact. Then it's also a case of you can't be that person's savior. You can't be the martyr. Oh, I'm going to save him. I'm going to change him. No, you can't. He's got to take that on. You can't take that on.
We love to do that.
And it's like the more you enable that person, they're not going to change. So you've got to kind of be cruel to be kind. And it's not that you're, and then the biggest like objection I get, but that's playing mind games. I'm like, it's not playing mind games. You are literally trying to preserve yourself, because the most important person in all of this is you. You're paying your own bills. He's not. And on the flip side, I have had male clients who've had exactly the same thing. So it goes both ways, and I think the biggest issue that we have sometimes is the communication styles, very different communication styles and attachment styles.
Definitely.
Avoidance, narcs.
The list goes on and on. Yeah. If we were to zoom out on, if we're talking about relationships and the way people are communicating, which is a big thing. If we were to zoom out and look at current world timelines, because this is another big thing, isn't it? That's it concerns people and there's a fear aspect to it. But in terms of timelines and what's happening,
it's quite worrying. But I feel like this is like the breakdown that's needed to come. And I was going through like my memories on Facebook from 5 years ago, and it was like the ancestors are coming forward. We need to connect with our ancestors. There is going to be a dismantling going on. And I was like looking back and I was like, oh, shoot, I was right. So it's happening. The ancestors have been coming forward. And if you think about it, so many more people are actually talking about the ancestors now. People are talking about colonialism, and everything's coming full circle from the last couple of 100 years. But if you think about it, what's happening here in the UK, what's happening in Australia, what's happening in America, everything's dismantling, right? Yeah. People are talking more about colonialism. People are claiming their roots, their cultures back, the knowledge back. Like, say, for example, from India, the Ayurvedic knowledge. There's all these videos about white women, coming up with all these new ideas of yoga. Like, who has a dog in a yoga studio? I'm just giving you an example, right?
Yeah.
And not pronouncing the names correctly. But there's also, claiming that knowledge as theirs, but it's not. And there are so many indigenous cultures around the world, whether we're looking at South America, Australia, Middle East, and everything. Colonialism has seeped through, whether we like it or not. And whenever we try and speak up, we're shut down one way or another. And what's happening now is we're kind of going through a bit of a reset. But then, obviously, when we look at the bigger picture, it's that the New World Order. It's that kind of the reset. Is that what they're trying to do? Like, there's only one religion. They can't do that. And this is where people need to wake up and actually kind of connect with their roots, find out where they're coming from, and actually start listening to their internal compass. Listen to their ancestors. What are they saying? Ancestors are giving messages in dreams via people who you meet, and things on social media that may resonate with you a hell of a lot more than they may have done like 5 or 6 years ago. Because people have got that pull now, because we've been living in a fake world for so long. And not only that, people are really, really wanting that human connection again, because there's been a lack of genuine human connection.
Yeah. Big time.
And what's going on, like in the Middle East and stuff, and in Israel and like Palestine and everything. And I was having a conversation with my friends, and I was just like, Israel did not exist until after World War One. Was it World War Two? I can't remember exactly. It didn't exist. Palestinians, like the Middle East, have been welcoming, just like India. But our countries, our ancestors, never went and invaded anywhere else. And that is one thing I can say from history that I know. But you can probably confirm that, especially because you're from that region and stuff. But otherwise, no, they haven't. And I was actually watching another TikTok the other day. In ancient times, part of, like, my family is from the region of Punjab, like the Indus Valley, the ancient Indus Valley bit. That at one time was part of Iraq and Iran.
Okay.
So obviously, when you go back and look at history, you know, we were all these countries were all one at one point, and they got divided, or they were provinces, but they were probably under one rule, you know. But we would have to go back into ancient history about it.
Yeah, well, how accurate is ancient history? Because that's been manipulated to suit the powers that be.
Yeah, but from what I know, but when you look at the bloodlines and stuff, if you go and get your ancestry done, you will know.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So then connecting with our ancestors, or tuning in, right, and hearing from our ancestors, for people who don't even know how to do that or where to begin, I feel like it's just a matter of, one, creating space for that to come through and then connecting with your intuition. But how else can people start to tune in to their ancestors?
One, I always say some people have an altar for their ancestors. That's one way. Or the other way is to connect to them through prayer. So what I tended to do was I'd always meditate and do automatic writing. So basically I'd say a little prayer, meditate, say whoever's meant to come through and give me the guidance that I need to know. Or they would automatically come through in dreams. But the ancestors will come forward when they need to and give you that nudge.
How do people trust what's coming through? And I know this is something that I've struggled with for a while, and I am getting a lot better at it. But sometimes you get the nudge, or you hear something, or someone says something, or
I think the
like,
thing
ooh.
is to sit in silence. It's silence that monkey mind. You've got to silence that monkey mind.
Mm-hmm.
Don't dismiss what you're hearing. Write it all down. And if it feels off, you know it's not right. If it is right, if it feels safe, then it is right. Listen to your body. Listen to your body. If you get anxiety, then that's not for you. If it feels safe, like a similar feel, then you know. If it's a familiar kind of feel or a sense of you knowing someone, it's there. I went to India. I'll give you an example. I went to India when I was about 6 or 7, first time, and I met like my grandparents, my great grandparents as well, one set of them. And after that, when I came back, when I was actually there, obviously for a 6, 7 year old, like I started seeing things from the corner of my eye, and I was like, "Am I really just going a bit loopy, or what is it?" And then I had a conversation with my grandfather, and I was like, "I saw someone there sitting," and he just smiled at me. And it wasn't until later when I came back, I had a dream, like in obviously rural India, not like not like completely rural. There's someone sitting on the bed. My grandfather is there, I'm playing, and there's this older gentleman there, and all he does is like go close up to him, and he just put his hand on my head to give me like his blessings. And that's when I kind of clicked, because my grandfather was there and it felt safe. So to me, that was my great grandfather, my grandfather's father. And he's been my guardian angel since day one.
I have full body tingles.
Yeah, full body tingles. And then I was just like, and then a couple of years ago, I was like, I really wonder if there's any pictures of him. And then my mum's cousin, she'd gone back to her father's house, my mum's uncle's house. And my great grandmother, she passed away quite a few years ago, and she had this photo box. Out came a whole bunch of photos. So she sent me a whole bunch of photographs of me that I'd never seen, pictures of my great grandparents from the younger days, and lo and behold, in it was a picture of that great grandfather that I had never met. So I was, and the most ironic thing was, I had asked my uncle, my mum's brother, a couple of months earlier. I was like, "Do you have any pictures?" And he's like, "I don't have any pictures." So I was like, "Oh, okay." I was a bit like, kind of like, But then my mum was like, "They wouldn't have had pictures back in those days." And I was like, "Well, yeah, there's black and white pictures. I'm sure they would have had something, like a passport picture or something of him." Bearing in mind, my great grandfather, he was in the army. And I was like, I'm sure there's something of him somewhere. And that is one picture that I've got of him. And I'm sure when the time is right, I will get more.
I love that.
So I'm a very big believer in when they're supposed to come forward to you, they will. Because after I got that picture, his wife, i.e. my great grandmother, his first wife, started coming through, who's my actual great grandmother. She started coming through as well.
Wow. What has that journey been like? Because, well, I know for me, a similar example with my dad, like my biological dad, he passed away when I was like 1.5 or something. And then over the years, in various readings and situations, he's the first one to come through and communicate and things like that. And so I love hearing examples of this.
Like with her, she's always been there in the background as a background character. I think that's the best way to put it. She passed away quite early on. My grandfather was only about 3 when she passed away. But she's always been in that background, that silent strength. So when she comes forward, her healing energy is off the charts. And she's actually standing behind me right now as I speak. And so grandfather. So it's almost like when I see her, it's like she is literally she looks exactly like my grandfather, probably slightly lighter in color, very like grey blue eyes. My grandfather had grey blue eyes. I showed somebody a picture of my grandfather and it was like, "Is he mixed race?" And I was like, "No, he's not mixed race. He's Indian, dude. Look, he's got a turban. He's Indian, yeah?
Yep.
He's a Sikh. He's a Punjabi Sikh guy." And he's like, "Yeah, but he looks," and I was like, "Listen, when I go and do my DNA thing, we can go and find out what of a mishmash I am." But it's like when I see her in traditional dress and wearing the headscarf around like they did back then. But it's almost like she's got this silent strength, very quiet. But it's like when she's got something to say, she'll come and say it. It's like I have moments like, for example, when I'm in the middle of the night, if I'm trying to sleep, she'll come and put me to sleep like a little child. Or sometimes my grandfather and my great-grandfather and her will appear for conversations, downloads. And it's almost like some of my family think I've gone cuckoo. But mind you, my siblings are like, you're cuckoo. And I was just like, all right, then why are you asking me questions when it comes to it? Even my mum's like, can you do a reading? Can you find out what's going on with your brother for XYZ or this or that? And I was like, Mum, I'm not allowed to tell you. She's like, why not? I'm like, your grandfather's here. And then she starts, why does he always have to come and do this? Why does he always have to? And then I get it from her sisters as well. And I was just like, listen, don't come to me. If I have to give you something, I'll give it. If not, you are not going to like what I have to say, because he's quite strict with all of them. That's just his authoritative energy. It's like that, patriarchal thing.
Yep.
But with me, nothing.
You're a special little baby. Yeah, I love that.
I mean, like, I'm special, but obviously, I mean, when you look at the flip side of it, there's also trauma in the family. So it's like my mum saw him die. He stepped on a landmine
Oh, that's intense.
during the Indo-China War. Was it? I can't remember if it was the Indo-China War or was the Indo-Pak War in the early 1960s. I think it was an Indo-China War, yeah. So at that point, he stepped on the landmine or the bomb, whatever it was, and he stepped on it because he was trying to save my grandfather.
Okay. Yeah.
My mum was playing and she saw that happen to her grandfather. And I can only imagine what my mum went through, or my grandfather went through at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the thing is, people don't realize how much trauma there is in families until you actually start digging deeper. And especially kind of in my family, when I look back and I've been digging down into history, there's a lot of trauma on both sides, but it's almost like, and I'm grateful for the fact that they've allowed me to be able to unravel what's going on, because it's almost like I'm that chosen cycle breaker for my family. And when I've sat in meditation and when my great-grandfather has come through, I've been shown visions that he was there for me right from the point of conception to the point of birth. And I've always felt like there was someone there, but I just didn't know who it was. As children, we have our imaginary friends and stuff. And he was one of them.
That's really special.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people are like, you're making it up. And I'm like, really? So how come I know all of this information and it comes to me when I need to know for that next level of healing?
Yeah. What does it look like? Because you speak about, digging into our history, and we know that there's so much trauma. There's ancestral trauma, there's generational trauma. But I feel like there's a huge influx of cycle breakers that are emerging. I'm one of those too. And there's so many, mostly women, that I'm noticing, and I'm sure that there are men as well, who are holding the weight of their lineage as a cycle breaker. And so as someone who you are a cycle breaker too, when you have these gifts where you've got access to some, really important information, how do we get to a stage where, because I feel like we get in these cycles of constantly like having to heal another thing, having to heal another thing. And then it's like, but at some point there's got to be a way to transmute the actual trauma.
I think the thing is, we're carrying, the way that I see it and the way that I've learned it, is we're carrying stories that don't belong to us.
Mm.
They're inherited stories, you know, and in one way you could say they've been a hindrance, but in a way they've been a gift as well, because it's allowing us to become a better version of us. Like, I've been on this healing journey for so long now, I can't even begin to tell you. I started over 20 years ago. You know, I don't know if you've heard of Dr. John DeMartini.
Sure have, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? He has come up so much in the last 2 months. It's like I'm.
Yeah. So I went through to one of his breakthrough experiences. So I met one of my the life coach then, who is now my friend. We went through the whole breakthrough experience and stuff, and that kind of shifted a lot. You know, it's like at any one point, someone would be supporting you and somebody would be against you. So there's always that balance.
Yeah.
So who would be against you at that point in time and who would be supporting you? And that person could be miles away.
What does that allow? Because my
It
understanding
allows you to kind of just transmute everything, right?
kind of like
So
neutralizes the.
yeah, it neutralizes it. It balances it all out. So you see, it's like the pros and the cons. What's the lesson? And what isn't, you know? You know, I mean, there's so many different schools of thought around this and stuff. But the way that I've learned it and the way that I've processed it is, obviously some people do timeline therapy and whatever. But with me, it's almost like the process that I've learned is we'll go through, do a trauma map. Okay. So there's you, your parents, their parents, and whatever. So you go back. Okay, so what are the themes? What is the most traumatic? What's been traumatic that's happened in mum and dad's life? You know, what's happened in grandparents' life that you know of, and what's been traumatic that's happened in your life, and what is the common theme? Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that common theme that has come down those generations? And then we'll do another timeline, write down what age is like. So, for example, say I'm just going to say 25 to 0. Say what has been traumatic during that timeline in your childhood. Then go back and disperse those. But then I would go through a meditation to find out, I'd go through a process to find out who it belongs to, mum's side, dad's side, how many generations back are we going? And then go through the process of a meditation and having a conversation with that person to hand that story back to that person, shutting the door on them, moving forward, turning your back on to them to move forward and say, I now begin a new chapter with my story. And it's almost like we're shifting that energy and we're handing that gift of knowledge and lessons back to that person to move forward.
I guess that gives them an opportunity to move forward too.
Yeah. So as they say, when you go through the healing journey, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing the generations gone by and the future generations, because you're breaking that cycle. You're not repeating that cycle. You're not taking that story forward. You're becoming more self-aware and you're making peace with it. And above all, you're forgiving yourself for it.
And yeah, I've been doing this work for a long time too. I've never really heard this concept, which is why I'm really like landing on it. The concept of giving it back to them. It's kind of
because
like,
it's their story. Because if you think about it, it's their story, and their story has been passed down God knows how many generations. I mean, some of the sessions that I've done with some of my clients, some of them, we've gone right back to the point of the first generation at the beginning of time.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One client in particular, it's almost like when we did this whole meditation and visual thing, her ancestor was in shackles and her faith was down. So she herself said, she was like, Jag, I felt like I was shackled. My throat felt blocked. I couldn't say what I wanted to say. And after those sessions that we had, she felt a lot freer. Her energy shifted.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was over three or four sessions that we did.
The work is so powerful.
The thing is, it's intense. But obviously, the way that I work it is I always allow that integration period so the nervous system can regulate as well, because some people can't cope with the pressure. There's this sense of overwhelm. Another client, she had cancer, and we went through a process of it. She had breast cancer. We went through the process, and it's almost like she felt unloved. She felt abandoned. And when we did like the whole meditation thing, she felt this sharp pain shift from the right side of her shoulder blade. It had just shifted. And the funny thing was, she had had an operation to have the lump taken out from the right side.
Right. So that's where she was holding the trauma.
Yeah.
It manifests in the body, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
It manifests in the body in so many different ways. And everyone's like, how did you get into it? And I was like, because I've done the work on myself. I always say I am a walking testimony of my own work. And it's like, but how? And I was just like, oh God, do I have to really go into it now? But it's like, I was diagnosed with psoriasis when I was 5. And I ended up having an allergic reaction to antibiotics and my whole body erupted. But what had happened before then, I had been violated by someone known to me. So obviously that was a reaction to the trauma that came out. So I've had psoriasis since I was 6. I had it on my hair, on my scalp and everything. And in 2017, I had my worst flare up. So if you can imagine walking around looking sunburnt for nearly 2 years, I was about 85% covered head to toe.
Yeah.
And it was just so painful, so painful. And prior to that, obviously I had quite a few stressful years because my parents had been in a car crash. I was constantly on the go. I hadn't had a chance to process everything. So I'm there supporting my mum, trying to get her every appointment, everything. And then it's almost like I got made redundant from my corporate job, from investment banking. And then next thing I know, it's just like my skin's erupted. Right. And when I say you will know when to do the work, you will know when to do. I was like literally on my knees at that point. I was really, really bad, crying. You know, my body temperature wasn't regulating. I was in so much pain. It was horrendous. I think back and I just want to cry. How the hell did I cope? Because it was almost like I just didn't want to talk to anyone. I just like literally hid away. I literally hid away from everybody. But around that time, I started getting dreams. Like literally, I don't know whether it was deja vu or they were trying to show me something, you know, images of things that have happened in the past. And people are like, oh, you're probably just imagining it. And I was like, I couldn't be. So it was like there's a vision of my grandfather as a child crying out for his mum because she'd passed away, right? And then there was other visions, and these were repetitive. And there was another vision of a woman crying after being hit in a corner, you know, being told, if you don't give birth to a child, if you can't conceive, we're going to leave you, take you back to your parents, we're going to get our son remarried, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what the hell is going on? So I started digging deeper within myself, and I had a few conversations with one or two people without my mother knowing, because my mom's like, why do you want to know? What do you know? But then it was the case of, right, that was an image of my grandfather wanting his mother because she died. I'm not too sure whether it's during childbirth or she was pregnant and she lost the baby, and she was poisoned, basically jealousy, as we know, can happen. So it's almost like that feeling of being abandoned my grandfather felt, right? And when you look at that, when you look at the spiritual meaning of psoriasis, it's like you want to be close to someone, but you don't want anyone you don't want anyone hurting you either. So it's a very contradictory kind of, there's that conflict there, that inner conflict. Am I good enough? Can I, so it's almost that. So it's really, really interesting. It's like when you start paying attention to what your body's saying, it will teach you a lot. And then that other vision I had, it clicked because my great-grandfather's parents, they couldn't have children. And then I was like, aha, that was my great-great-great-grandmother. That was a vision of her where she was feeling abandoned because she couldn't conceive at that point because they'd been married for a number of years. And obviously they would have, in our cultures, they would like, you're a barren woman. No, why are you still here? Go, blah, blah, blah. And the story behind my great-grandfather's birth is where his father would go to the Sikh temple, the Gurdwara, the local Gurdwara where they lived at that point. He'd go and sweep the steps with his beard.
As a way of like, I'll do this.
As a way of asking God for the boon or for the blessing of a child so that the lineage could continue.
Yeah.
And the saint there, who was one of the residential priests there, he went up to my great-great-grandfather, and he said, why are you doing this? And it's like, we've been married for a number of years. We can't have any children. And he was like, don't worry, you'll have children. And then from there, that lineage continued. My great-grandfather was born and his siblings. So I always say, if my great-grandfather didn't exist, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
So I'm that chosen child to break that lineage, break that, curse, you could say, for my family. And then on the flip, and this is on my mom's side, and on the flip side, on my dad's side, when I look at my grandmother, she didn't have it easy. Her dad died like a couple of days after she was born. Her mum died when she was like 9 or 10. So she was surrounded by trauma.
Yeah.
My grandfather was in World War II. He fought in Burma. He went missing for a year.
Jeez, okay, yep.
Right? And
casually, yep.
Casually, he goes missing. He'd been shot. He lost an eye. He was shot in the chest and in the arm and stuff. And I remember I'd always like look at his arms and stuff. And he'd always like, because he was a soldier, he had such a strong grip. and he'd like be lifting me up and just like dropping me down. I'd be like literally on my backside. And it's like, if he would be putting on, but then it's that, and then obviously it's like when I look back and look at the outbursts that my grandfather used to have, that was PTSD.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, and then like my grandmother would be always like, she would like literally cry at the drop of a hat sometimes. And again, that's the trauma.
Yeah, that's her PTSD.
You know, yeah, that is, you know, but also like the way that they were quite controlling as well. It's because they wanted that control, that fear of losing, that, you know, losing someone, because she had been brought up by her aunts and her uncles. So she never had that free will to go and do whatever she wanted to do.
That's right.
So it's that it's very contrasting. So it's almost like, where do you go? And then in another part of my family, like my grandfather's, my paternal grandfather's sister, you know, I always use that as an example of generational trauma. So obviously Pakistan and India were one up until 1947, and my family are from the Pakistan side, who migrated over to the India side of Punjab. My great aunt and her husband were coming over with their children. My great uncle got killed coming over the border. Right? He got brutally murdered. And then many years later, when her son got older, got married, he got into an altercation with his friends. He got murdered.
Oh.
Right? And then many years later, in 1984, when they were the Delhi riots, my cousin was supposed to get married. Like, this was her daughter's son, her grandson. He got killed in the riots. So I always explain it to that that's the generational trauma.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I have people like, we don't like this person, we don't like people of this religion, we don't like people of that religion. And I'm like, I can sit there and say, I don't like people of any religion, but I don't say that. Because this is what's happened in my family. On one side, it was this religion, people of this religion. On that side, it was people of this religion, obviously not mentioning any names of any religions.
Yes.
But I don't do that, because I have friends from every ethnic background that you can think of, people who are of different religions, but we never, ever force our views down one another's throats, because we all have our lessons. Even though there are so many different religions out there, we all go to one, which is the source, and that's it.
Yeah. I love
that. And that is what Sikhism is about. That's the religion that I've been born into is about, because it's a way of life, you know, but people just confuse it all. But coming back to the whole trauma thing, I explain it that way. It's the simplest way. So it's almost like, look at the patterns that have reoccurred in your family. Because, you know, it's like people could say, oh, like if someone gets defensive all the time and is always like hyper or whatever, it's learned behavior.
Yeah.
You know, they say, oh, it's a family habit. No, it's not. It's learned behavior. And it's about unlearning it all.
It could honestly go on and on and on, because it's such an intricate conversation, and it's literally, we're talking lineage, and so it literally could go on and on and on.
Yeah, it's so, there's so many different layers of it. You can constantly have conversations about it, but I think the most important thing is, when it comes down to individuals who are cycle breakers, I think the biggest thing is being self-aware of yourself first and foremost. Secondly, we can sit there and blame our parents and our grandparents as much as we want. And I'm guilty of doing that continuously, especially when I get triggered. But then I was like, they're none the wiser. It's my mission. It's my job. And it's a heavy mission. It's not for the faint-hearted. It
Definitely.
is not for the faint-hearted. You know, you've got to heal yourself because you owe it to yourself. You are not here to carry those stories. You're here to free yourself of those stories. However long it takes, just free yourself. You know, I have my family members saying, why aren't you married? Why aren't you married? Because in our culture, they expect us to get married by 20 something. And I'm in my 40s now, never been married. I even have like my great aunt, like my nan's sister and her sister-in-law, why don't you get married? And I'm just like looking at them like, just no. I'm like, I've got too much to do. They're like, yeah, but you can do it afterwards. I'm like, do what? Because you never know what type of person you're going to end up with.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, but I think they've kind of given up on me. But I think when I look back at my nan's life as well, bless her, she always used to complain to her father, he never let me study further. Right up until her death, you never let me study further.
Mm.
And there are other women in my family who are cycle breakers. I have got 3 aunts who are PhD doctors.
I love it. Yeah.
You know, and then there's me having gone from corporate. Now I'm studying further into trauma and somatics. And everyone's like, you're a weirdo. And I was like, okay, if you think I'm a weirdo, I'm a weirdo. But
Yep.
you're the ones who come to me for advice, not the other way around.
That's right. I'm gonna wave that weirdo flag. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
But I think the thing is, a lot of us have never, you could say, fitted in growing up. I've always been the lone wolf. I've never been one to follow the sheep.
Yes, likewise. Hello, Rebel Matriarch. It's literally in the name. Yeah, I love
Yeah, I know.
that.
But,
For
but there's just so much out there and we're still learning and unlearning.
that's the big one. It's the unlearning.
Yeah.
The learning.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's an ongoing process.
It is. It is. And for the women who are tuning in and they're hearing your story, and especially the cycle breakers, because I think this is a really big aspect of what you're bringing. Do you have, if you're tuning into your gifts, and do you have any messages that are coming through or advice or wisdom? I feel like it's what you've been sharing is really important. And I'd love to know if there's something else for us that we need
I
to
think the biggest thing right now is use your discernment. Trust your gut instinct.
Mm.
Some of us are moving forward. Some of us are going through a continuous rebirth. And some of us are in a void. So try and not go against the tide. Sit with it. Allow yourself to process those emotions, because these emotions that are coming up are not ours. They are belonging to others. So it's almost like you've got to try and find a release one way or another, whether it's journaling, whether it's like going into nature, meditation, visualization. Do what feels right for you, but trust your intuition, your gut instinct. But the most importantly is use your discretion time and time again. Your discretion has to be on high alert, because there are so many people out there right now who are claiming to be something they're not, like I touched upon at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's more for your own mental and emotional safety than not. Look at what their story is. There needs to be a story, because, and I'm sure you've found this as well, that everyone's like, oh, I'm a mother, I was a wife, I didn't feel happy, and I had this idea to go and do whatever. But that's not your story. That is not your actual authentic story. What is your authentic story? You need to look for that authentic story more than anything. But I feel like the ancestors are going to be coming forward and really giving you tips on how to use your gifts, because we're going through a huge evolving period over the next 6 months. We're really up leveling. And if like me, you haven't been as visible and you've been in the void, that's fine. But we've got to rise up. But you've got to rise up in your own being. Don't follow anyone blindly, willy-nilly. Do your research. That's what is being given, because there is so much misinformation out there at the moment on all levels.
Yeah, there's a lot of gurus that are being made known as not actual gurus and very deceptive. So I think that's
we won't talk about certain things. I mean, obviously, like Epstein files and Deepak Chopra being named in those as well, and that's quite scary. That is quite scary.
Yep.
But also, like, there were the likes of Jace Shetty as well being exposed not so long ago.
Yep. There's that I can't. There's so many. There are so many that have been exposed, and then there are some that haven't been exposed. But in the underworlds, the whispers.
There's even whispers of Tony Robbins and stuff. Again, be mindful. I mean, I've got nothing against these people, but again, it comes down to what I've said at the beginning. Go where you are drawn to, because that is the most important thing.
Yeah. I love that trust.
But before we go, I want to pull out a card from one of my decks. So I'm just going to grab it.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my Shaman's Oracle. And I'm going to pull out a card, the deck, and see what you can tell it's getting late over here. So
it is. Well, it'd be like 11 p.m. for you.
Yeah, it's 11 p.m.
Absolute
so I'm going to see what the ancestors, I can say wisdom and guidance from the ancestors, so if anyone wants that.
I love it.
Yeah. So, but I also want to say stand in your truth. If anyone's trying to gaslight you, stand in your truth. But I'm going to say pick your battles wisely. Okay, so we've got the ancestral guidance.
Yes. Oh.
So I think that's quite important. So to me, that is like kind of listen, sit in silence, listen. When your ancestors are going to come forward, you will get goosebumps, a sense of familiarity, like I said before. And they are there guiding you. So trust your intuition. Get out there, get back into the rhythm of nature, dance, movement. Hear the beating drums. That is really, really important. That's what I'm being given.
Oh. And you know what? When you showed the card, I don't know if you've seen the movie Arrival.
No.
Yeah. So if you watch the movie Arrival, you'll know what I mean. And if anyone has watched the movie Arrival, are you able to hold the visual of the card up? With the black splotches. It's the in the movie the aliens are coming, and the way that they communicate is using like black smoke to, that's how they articulate their languages. And the theme, the end game is that the woman, the main character, is able to foresee the future, and they're trying to communicate.
Yeah.
You're more powerful than you realize. And it's just,
Yeah.
and then what you shared, and then that card, and then I'm like, oh my gosh.
I mean, let me just see what it says in the book. Because I normally don't tend to use the books. I just go with whatever I'm picking
Yeah.
up. So it says the mighty stag with its branching antlers is one of the most powerful images to be found on cave walls. Here it represents the all-important act of guidance in an ancestral context. This guidance is far more profound than merely showing a physical path. It is the guidance of our footsteps on an inner journey of the spirit, orienting us in the right direction and ensuring that we take no wrong turnings or decisions. The ancestral guidance oversees the steps we choose on our path through life and counsels us from the all-encompassing wisdom of the spirit world. And the interpretations is profound wisdom, direction, aspiration, seeking new ways, companionship of family on your journey, realizations, and echoes of ancient paths. So yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you for doing that. That's beautiful.
You're welcome. Thank
And
you for having me.
oh, absolute pleasure. It's been lovely. Lovely to actually just listen to you speak, because your accent and the word you're speaking, it's actually just lovely to receive, but also what you've been speaking to is very much on my heart. And so I'm really grateful that we got to have this conversation. And for anyone who wants to get to know Jags more, where can they find you, or how can they work with you?
So I'm in, like I said, I'm in a bit of a void at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm in creative mode. So you can always follow me on Instagram. I am Jags Sandhu. I'm just in the middle of or you can follow me on Facebook as well under Jags Sandhu. Or on TikTok as well. I'm on there. And I haven't really used it.
Yeah.
So I will be putting out things that I'm working on over the next month or so. So I'm coming back out after a period of grief processing, as you know. So you can reach out to me there if anyone wants to have a quick chat and stuff. So, but the way that I work is even though I'm a psychic clairvoyant, I'm a healer, I specialize in ancestral trauma release. So
I think that's pretty evident with what you've been sharing today.
I think maybe we needed to have this conversation. But
Yeah,
obviously, we could have longer conversations on different topics at some point when the time is right.
absolutely. I always feel like there's more. I always have questions. And so I'm like, but I got to respect your time. I got to respect the listeners' time. We might have to do a
Yeah,
part two in the future.
no problem. Anytime.
Well, thank you so much for saying yes and just being so open and honest and transparent and sharing your beautiful wisdom and magic. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate you too. Thanks, Samantha.
Thanks, lovely.
Take care.
Yes. Thank you for being here, gorgeous woman, for rising with us, remembering with us, and refusing to shrink inside a world that benefits from your silence. If this episode moved you, cracked you open, or reminded you of who the hell you are becoming, share it with a woman who is ready to rise too. I want to invite you to follow, subscribe, and leave a rating so this message becomes too loud, too wild, and too undeniable to be ignored. The movement grows because of women like you. Women who choose truth over comfort, liberation over obedience, and voice over disappearance. You can connect with me, Samantha Sanford, at Rebel Matriarch, and all links to our guest are in the show notes below. Until next time, stay rooted, stay rebellious, and remember, the world changes when women refuse to disappear.